so much for coming. I'm honored to be here in one of the major primary sessions. I had received an EUS newsletter the other day, and with the thrilling announcement that Anna Tunnicliffe had been Rolex Woman of the Year, and I shot her off an email and I just said, Anna, congratulations, no one deserves it more than you. It was the insurance, right? She hasn't responded to me. But what I wanted to just start with was the genesis of the One Design Insurance Program is that it started with just the U.S. sailing classes, and so we started with 11, and that was back in 2004. We now have 135 classes in the program, and whether you sail for fun or you're on a path for an Olympic campaign, the program is all set, is ready to accommodate any level that you need. But as Lee said, I communicate with One Design sailors all the time, by daytime, nighttime, weekends, holidays, text, email, by phone. The funny thing is that most of these people think I work for some phantom company called One Design Insurance Program, or better yet, I work for U.S. Sailing, which I'm always happy to say when things go well, I work for U.S. Sailing. But the truth is I really work for Gowrie Group, and we partner with U.S. Sailing to provide insurance opportunities for sailors like you, but those are just the technical details. What I'm here to do today is just to talk to you about the One Design Insurance Program and how it can help you and your classes. I don't want to bore you with a bunch of slides and graphs about how insurance works because I may not have all of your attention. So instead I'm going to share with you some true stories that are more or less of the hundreds of questions I get over the course of 10 years. I've kind of put them into 4 buckets so that you can get a real picture of how the One Design Insurance Program works. So true story number 1. A lightning sailor discovers that his homeowner's policy doesn't allow racing or include the needed $300,000 in liability coverage. And as you listen to the story, just think of a situation that perhaps you have had or a sailor like you. You've registered for a regatta, you train with your crew all summer, you spent every night last week preparing the boat, you've loaded the boat on the trailer, you've got your buddies, the bags are in the car, and it's the day before the regatta, you're at work, and at lunch you take a quick minute to just do one last look at the NOR. And you sort of look down the list, and you hadn't really looked as far as number 19, Appendix 19, and it says insurance. Each participating boat shall show proof of third-party liability insurance with a minimum cover of $300,000. You read it a couple times. What am I going to do with this? I've heard of it, but I don't really know what third-party liability is. So you call your homeowner's agent, you ask them if they can email you proof of third-party liability, and they ask what for. Well, you just sort of say very quickly, I'm sailing this weekend. And they said, what kind of sailing are you doing? And they said, I'm racing my boat, and in order to register for the race, I need to show proof of liability insurance. You get dead silence on the phone. The agent says, racing? Engines? No engines. You sleeping on the boat? No, ma'am. This is a 19-foot boat, and we don't sleep on the boat. So the homeowner agent puts you on the phone, puts you on hold. They talk to their supervisor, they check your policy, and in the end, they come back to you and they say, your policy doesn't permit racing. So you're 15 minutes into your lunch break. You don't have a whole lot of time left. You remember somewhere in the back of your mind or from an email blast that U.S. Sailing sent you something about some kind of insurance. So you give them a call, they give you my number and email, and tell you that I can probably get you what you need, no problem. At first, having been turned away by the homeowner agent, you're a little hesitant to tell me how quickly you need the insurance for fear that I won't be able to help you. But for every question you ask, I say, yep, no problem. Okay, been there, done that. And we talk about the upcoming race. I assure them I've spoken to other people who are also going to the regatta, and I'm familiar with the NOR request. And you ask, this is a question I get 1,000 times. Why do they want so much third-party liability when the boat's only worth $15,000? I can't do that much damage to my boat. I explained to you that the third-party liability insurance is coverage for bodily injury or property to others, so AKA collisions. In this litigious world, regatta organizers are waking up to the fact that sailors need to race with insurance. Now I'm really talking your language and you understand why you need it. So I direct you to our new website that you can walks you through five easy steps. And I stay with you on the phone while you ask me some questions just to reinforce that you're doing it right. And within 5 minutes, you've got a policy. You've purchased it with a credit card. It's emailed to you before we hang up the phone. So the problem with Appendix 19 is solved, and since the policy is a 12-month policy, you don't need to think about it again for another year. So, case solved. The second story is about a Finn sailor who needed to add coverage to lend his boat to a friend. And a relatively new client calls me to tell me he's lending his boat to an international training partner and wants it noted on his policy. So we begin the conversation about the differences between lending and chartering. The One Design insurance program lets you lend your boat anytime to anyone with your permission, no strings attached. However, when I asked my client if he was charging a fee, he said no. So I continued to probe a little bit more and asked him if the person who was using his boat, or was he paying a storage fee? Was he getting him any sales? Was he paying a mooring or a transportation fee? And then my client said, well, yeah, he's buying a new suit of sails and he's giving them to me after the regatta. So I had to explain that any financial consideration in exchange for the boat is considered a charter. And I also said if he didn't have the charter coverage on his policy and his charterer did have a claim, he'd have no coverage. Most marine policies, they exclude charter coverage, and many won't even let you add the coverage back. The One Design policy lets you buy charter coverage, which makes the insurance program especially unique. I tell them there's a flat $100 charge. You can do it you can occasionally charter it throughout the year, and in the end, he decides that it's worth it to buy the charter coverage. Then later that month, I got a phone call from the owner of the boat. He'd had an accident. The charterer had had an accident, and now he needs to submit a claim. But nobody likes insurance or insurance people. We know that until they have a loss, and then suddenly we become very popular. We exchange a phone call, a couple of emails, and within 10 days, he gets a substantial check in the amount of, I don't know if it was $7,000 from the insurance company, and I get an email from him saying, thank you very much for advising me to buy the right coverage. So the problem with lending versus chartering is understood and resolved. And it does happen quite often, and it does take probing to get people to tell you what they're really doing with their boat so that you can ensure that you're giving them the right coverage that they need. The other story is about a sonar client who's over in Europe. He needs to add worldwide coverage, and he needs $2 million in liability. So my sonar client was, I can't remember if he was in France or Germany. But he'd already picked up his charter boat. He's standing in line to check in at registration. It's late Saturday afternoon, and in front of him, he hears two Brits talking to him about the insurance requirement, which is 1.5 million euros. The regatta starts tomorrow. My client just goes, shoot. I forgot. So I get an email from him with a subject line that says, urgent, need increased liability pronto. So remember, it's Saturday, it's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. in Europe. And I'm at the club, having just finished series racing, enjoying a soda. Or two. So anyway, I head to the office, I pull up his policy, and I realize that not only does he not have enough liability coverage, but he only purchased North American Navigation as his sailing area. And he didn't buy the charter coverage to cover him to charter another sonar. So I just sort of shake my head a little bit, and I follow his lead, and I said, one of the things you have to understand about sailing and insurance is your policy needs to match where and how you use your boat. So I quickly added worldwide coverage, added the non-owned charter coverage, which allows him to charter another sonar for his own use, and increased his third-party liability to $2 million. So within a few minutes, a few dollars later, he gets his updated policy on his phone, and he's able to check in at registration the next morning. I get an email the next day that says, thanks for helping us out on your day off. It made a big difference for our event, and we promise not to make you jump so high again in the future. I got that with Godiva chocolate and a bouquet of flowers. It was a good day. So the problem with extending coverage to comply with the NOR and update the policy is resolved. And this just recently happened because the Melges 20 series is about to kick up in December. And so I got an email. I didn't get a call. I got an email from a Melges 20 sailor who's Italian and needs coverage for the U.S. Regatta Series. And it was very funny because I think he was using Google Translator, and I sort of understood what they were talking about, and he had tried to get the policy online through our new online program, but it doesn't let you buy a policy if you're not a U.S. resident. You have to go through me because there's some more technical details that I need to work out. So we exchanged a few emails, and his English, again, it was very spotty, but I had emailed him an application. He'd gotten it back to me in about 10 minutes, and I was able to issue him a policy within, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But what's tricky about issuing insurance for non-U.S. residents is that they need a valid U.S. address. And because he was renting a place in Florida for the winter, we used that address, so that was no problem. Because it was a series, it wasn't just a single event. It was, I think the Audi series is a series of 4 races. I ended up issuing him a 12-month policy. So if this was a single event like the upcoming J24 Worlds in Rochester, we would have only needed an event insurance policy, which would have covered the dates leading up to the event, if there's any pre-tuning dates, the event itself, and a couple days at the end to get the boats back to where they need to go. The point is, with foreigners, we can help them out with insurance of all types for series or single regattas as long as they have a valid U.S. address. And I can work with class associations and yacht clubs for the yacht clubs that are hosting the event, and together we can determine what the best avenue is for getting the right address so that we can get this done. And as I mentioned earlier, I think, with this Google Translator and his enthusiasm for having gotten this done so quickly, He must have typed into the translator, "Thank you very, 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 very much," and the email I got said, "I love you." That's really a keeper. I didn't even need flowers for that. So the problem with insuring a non-U.S. resident for the M20 series in Florida was resolved. And we all know the reason you have insurance is because what if you have a claim? So everyone loves claim stories, and claims are when insurance matters most. If a claim happens, you really do want to have the right people, the right coverage, and you want to have an all-around advocate to make sure you get a fair and equitable payout. And as you can see from this chart, the three biggest reasons for losses are dismasting, and I put the bucket liability, which is basically collisions, and total loss. So here are some real life scenarios of some of the claims that we've paid in the past year or so. An insured was racing his Star in Spain when he dismasted. He reported his claim, and a payment went out to him 12 days later for $2,038. An insured hit another boat while racing. He reported the claim, and his policy paid $8,200 in liability coverage to the owner of the boat he damaged. A fire in the yacht club shed destroyed the sails of one of our insureds he had stored his boat there, and he reported the loss, and a check was sent to him a couple days later for $2,700. An insured was racing in Spain, and his boat was stored in the club's fenced facility when not in use, and his rudder, his tiller, and his tiller extension were all stolen. Insurance paid him $1,200 within a few weeks. And during a storm, a tree was hit by lightning. The tree fell on the mast, which was stored in the insured's yard next to his boat. Insured paid $4,700 to replace the mast. So why am I telling you all these stories? My point in telling them is to give you a sense of how in real life the One Design insurance program meets the very specific needs of One Design sailors like you. You're sailors. We don't expect you to know about insurance or to know exactly what you need. That's why you have me and Gowrie Group, because we're not only insurance experts, but we're sailors too. So we know what you need and have designed the customized program to include everything that you would need. We've already gone over a lot of these coverages in previous examples, so I'll just, we can go over them later, but I will just say that service is a major part of my program, and you get me every time you call or text or email, because I'm always on your team. And I make every effort 7 days a week to meet your deadlines, which aren't always on the best of days, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, but I'm there for you. So hopefully you get a sense of that now you know you need this insurance, but are wondering what it costs. New in the last year, we now offer significant premium differences based on where the sailors use their boat.
Sarah, you're one slide ahead of yourself.
I'm so good at this. Okay, but I think I'm here. I think I'm here. So new in the last year, we now offer coverage for local sailing, North America sailing, and international sailing. And what we decided was that local sailors are much different risks than traveling racers. So it behooves us to take a look at what the price differences are when you take, for instance, a 1995 Thistle with an agreed value of $15,000, and if you sail locally, and I was just assuming a $300,000 liability, and you're all members of U.S. Sailing, so you get the credit, that local sailing is $201, North America is $302, and worldwide is $387. So you can see that as you expand your horizon, the cost goes up a little bit. You may have a policy with another company that's less. It's important to know the difference between an agreed value policy and an actual cash value policy. The One Design insurance program does not depreciate the value of the boat as it ages. It's an agreed value policy. So if you paid $15,000 for your 1995 Thistle, and 5 years later you had a total loss, that's the amount that you would be paid, the $15,000. The other type of policy, which is cheaper, is called actual cash value, and that would depreciate based on the value, based on the age of the boat, so your payout might be less. That also applies to partial losses, such as a mast, or which is according to our actuarials, is the most popular cause of a loss. An ACV, actual cash value policy, would depreciate for the value of the mast rather than replace it with a brand new one. And when I look at all the thousands of policies that I've written since 2004, the average premium is about $360 that ends up to costing $30 a month. So investing in the right insurance with people who understand sailing and racing, in the end it's affordable and it's smart. So who can buy it? The One Design insurance program is designed for individual sailors for their private pleasure use. It's not intended to be used as inventory for a boat dealer, a manufacturer, or a sailing organization. It's not a commercial policy. I have more people who buy it for their commercial policy, their little broker dealers or their reps, but they don't know that they're on the internet. And I Google the internet all day long to see if they're reps or dealers, and end up having to explain to them that that's not the proper coverage for them. We have many other solutions for people who are running good businesses and marine-related businesses, and that's a really good niche of ours. But the One Design program is really for people like you and me who own boats, we want to race them, and we want to grow our fleets. So how can you buy it? Buying it is a piece of cake these days. The best way to do it is to log on to our new website, and you're asked simple questions. You can add extras for your spare masts, dollies, chartering. Wherever you use your boat, you make the selection. It's purchased all within about 5 minutes. If you ever have questions during the online process, you can call or email me, and I can walk you through it from start to finish. You know, I can have you can purchase it. I had a person purchase it in the airport yesterday because they were flying down to the Caribbean to do an F-18 regatta, and he said, well, how am I going to buy it? And I said, well, it's a lot quicker for you to go online and purchase it, and before we hung up, he had purchased it right sitting in the airport. So now I need your help. One of the things that keeps me up at night is thinking about all the thrifty One Design sailors who subscribe to the notion that if they don't think about insurance and don't ask about insurance, that they'll either never have a claim or somehow be covered by their homeowners or the yacht club's insurance. But as we learned today, that's not the case. Sailors need their own standalone policy. I need your help in bringing this message to the sailors in your classes, at your clubs, and in your fleets. We regularly put out One Design messages in the EUS newsletter and in Scuttlebutt, but that's not enough. One of the we go through this constantly, but if you could raise your hand if you think you could do any or all of the following to help us get the word out to your class. Put up a banner or button on your website, already prepared, just cut and paste. Send a dedicated email blast about the program to your email database. Text is already prepared, just cut and paste. Tell your class members how easily they can buy this insurance on the website. Try it yourself. Share the experience. Be proactive. Sail smart and safe. Encourage your sailors to have insurance by adding a requirement to the NOR. We talked about earlier having prescriptions for each classes and making it a class rule. But, you know, if the class requires third-party liability on the NOR and class rules, then you know that your sailors are sailing safe and they can get themselves out of any financial situations that they might find themselves in due to a collision. If you're hosting a major event, let me know because I can customize flyers and websites. I'm already working with the J24 Worlds for 2012, the Melges Audi series, which I just mentioned, and the Flying Dutchman that will be having the Worlds in September. Last year I worked with the M20s, Bacardi Cup, Laser 4.7 Youth Worlds, Rolex International, J22 Worlds. There's a lot going on, and going into the Olympic year, we had a lot of major events in the United States, and it was great to have somebody call and say, can you help these foreigners coming to the United States? And it was, in every case, yes. So it was the problem with how best to get our message out is to have you help us to do so. Oops, moving along. Now, does anybody have any questions about the One Design program at this point? Yes?
Are wooden boats excluded?
Are wooden boats excluded? Yes. Wooden boats are excluded. It's not our choice because we all prescribe to the thought that wooden boats are probably better, sturdier than some of the fiberglass boats. The problem is the underwriter. New Hampshire Insurance Company is the underwriter, and they don't have any wooden boats in the thousands and thousands of boats that they underwrite. Wooden boats are best put with Haggerty or with Heritage Marine. They have different requirements and they do a great job. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, I'm just going to talk very, very briefly about insurance for class associations. And the Burgee program is just basically the umbrella insurance program that Gowrie Group designed specifically for yacht clubs, class associations, and sailing schools. And when you think about all of the activities that your class association does, you realize that it does undertake some of the same functions as yacht clubs. And let's just look at the grid. We talked earlier about class associations running races, regattas. You provide PROs, you provide, you do the SIs. You may need to borrow boats for mark boats. Outside of the yacht club's membership, you may need to pull in other people from local clubs to help out. You run charitable events. You do hospice regattas. You do leukemia cups. I know you have meetings. I know that there are some class organizations that have sailing instruction. In some cases, you might own a boat. And in some of the better classes, the Lightning class, and I think it's the Ensign class, you've got the boat grant programs. Those are just incredibly rich offerings to the kids that they end up giving them to. You also own perpetual trophies and prizes. These are all coverages that are covered by the Burgee program that are tailored to class associations. So if your class is doing any of these activities and someone has an accident and you do not have any insurance, they're going to come after you because you're the leaders of the class and you're the fleet captains and the class officers. So the good news is The Burgee program has a simplified offering that protects paper clubs, like class associations, and fleets, local fleets. Paper clubs are those that don't typically have property, but are involved in running events and championships. You cannot depend on the yacht club that hosts your nationals or regional championship to carry all the liability for the activities that you do. And in your class, and for a class association, a typical annual policy, okay, I'm just going to give you the money, wind spread is about $900 a year, okay? That's a typical. So wind spread over all of your members and factored into the annual dues is less than $5 a person. And most smart class members and officers would not object to their usage of these funds. So in closing, don't wait until you have a loss or a catastrophic weather event to find out if your insurance is good enough, because it often is not. Talk to us now. We would be more than happy to have the conversation, and we ask as many questions as we can to understand exactly what you're doing. And I just want to thank you all for listening. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everybody.